Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM and welcome to the new year. This is a show where we hang out and we talk about games and things that inspire us about gaming. Padre, good to see you. John Doom, as always, very good to see you. Hopefully you guys are all having a wonderful day. I'm going to have to refocus my camera for the new year. Ignore the slight blurriness of your host. As we jump into our show for today. So our first two shows this week for the new year of 2024 are actually super important to me. I'm really excited to share both of them. The first is Cults of Runequest. This is a series that Evan and I have been discussing on exploring Glorantha, but that's not really what the show's about. And so we decided to move any further discussion of the Cults of Runequest books to here, to Behind the Screen, because that's where the show works out best. So, this is Mythology, and I just posted in the Discord channel, or Tink posted in the Discord channel. Good morning, Tink. And over on our YouTube channel, a little view, there is a centerfold map of just, it's just gorgeous, of all the gods of Glorantha. So, this book is the first in the series, but the fourth book which came out for the Cults of Runequest book. And this is a book that I would argue, if you love Glorantha but don't want to play RuneQuest, or if you're a world builder, I would pick this book up. It's a book that explores what mythology is, why it's important to cultures. It is a high-level overview of Gloranthan myth and why it's so important to the game of RuneQuest, but also provides a foundational look at why are myths important to cultures? Why are cults and religions important to cultures? What should they provide in our games? And so the book is about a third a look at mythology, a third a look at high-level interactions between gods and mortals and myth in Glorantha, and then a third some detailed help to get things going. One of the things that I think that this book, I'm glad I have it now, but it would have been nice to have before Lightbringers and Earth Goddesses. I can understand why Chaosium put the Prosopedia out first, and then Lightbringers and Earth Goddesses, because those are the books that are to give GMs and players the most use right out of the gate. But mythology is sort of the foundation for all of that. They explain why the cult write-ups are laid out the way they are. So the cult write-ups that are used in Lightbringers and Earth Goddesses, the explanation of that format is in this book. So, after beginning with a very wonderful sort of essay on why mythology is important. Again, I love that coming out of a year where there, we'll just say, have been some interesting interactions with the legacy of founders of this hobby and ways that people are forgetting them, ignoring them, misrepresenting them, dragging them, digging up their graves, messing around with their stuff. I love that all of the Glorantha books still have Greg Stafford listed as one of the primary authors. It's a great homage. It's a great, wonderful, and humble acknowledgement that none of this would have come about without Greg's influence. Yes, John, some of the late unpleasantness, to use a term that you coined, based off some very Certeri influences. So, still honoring Greg. Now, one of the interesting things, so it can be kind of hard for a GM or a player to kind of understand how myths interact, right? Because in Glorantha, the god time is coterminous. Everything happens, or cotemporal, I guess. Everything is eternal and constantly happening at the same time. So sometimes they become a little hard to figure out what myths are important, why myths are important, how to use myths. This book gives you that insight. I can't wait for the hero questing book that has been hinted at, because I think that will build off this book and really kind of fulfill a promise that we've had and a desire that we've had in RuneQuest for a very long time that just has never materialized. All right, so what are some other fun things about this book and why I think you should pick this up? And I'll put in the show notes where you can get this, because you can get this book at chaosium.com. You can get the print or the PDF over at DriveThruRPG. You buy it from Chaosium, you pay $40, you get the book and the PDF immediately. But I wonder if they still, don't quote me on this, but I know if you pre-order the PDF, that comes off of the physical book copy. I wonder if you just buy the PDF on Chaosium, if they'll give you that same coupon. But as you kind of walk through this book, there are, I mean, obviously there are just some gorgeous pieces of art done by an artist whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce. I'm very sorry. I think it's Loic, possibly. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. So in addition to a catalog of the gods, the universal cult format, where cult distributions, they've got great maps and say, hey, in this area of the world, here's what the distribution of the cults are. So for a GM, it's super helpful to say, hey, my players are going into this region. What cults are active there? But for me, the real importance are three things. First of all, they walk you through the monomyth. Joseph Campbell was heavily influencing Greg Stafford. And in doing that, they give you different myths. So like there's the myth of the seven hells on page 31, if you're following along at home. So, source, common story in Holy Country, and it walks you through each of the seven hells and why those are important. This does two things. One, it gives you some pre-made myths to sort of follow along if you want your characters to go hero questing. But two, it gives, through example, so many ways of putting myths together and putting them in front of your players so that they can engage with them. They have the Understanding Mythology section, which is really only about 6 pages. But I want to go to one section in here. 4 ways to experience these stories. And I used these in the article that I wrote for the Golden Key. That there are multiple ways of engaging with a story. There's reading, where if you just read a story, you engage with it on kind of a level of, I'm understanding that this myth exists. By reading it in this book, I know that there is a story in Glorantha called The Seven Hells. Then there's the verbal retelling, and this shifts for a GM kind of, as we in character tell the players the story of the Seven Hells. There's the witnessing, where you could describe to your group, hey, here's what all of the different actors and the roles that they're doing. But to really understand and to really grok a myth, you have to participate in the myth. And this actually is material that comes out of Greg Stafford's library, the Book of Hjortling Mythology. And what's interesting to me is these are the same steps that we kind of go through in getting into role-playing games. We may find a book and read it. And I shared the story. I was on GM Mayhem's podcast last night. It's going live on Wednesday of this week or next week. I'll post a link in the Discord when it goes live. On how I had my first role-playing book was Heroes Unlimited, and I had it for a while before I ever understood that it was a game. I knew I could make characters, but I didn't really understand what was going on. Then there's the verbal retelling. Hey, you should come join my D&D group or my Savage Worlds group. Here is why. This is really cool, and you would enjoy this. It kind of takes another level. It goes from a solo act to a conversation. Then there's the witnessing stage. You go online, you find some actual plays, or you do what I think is the worst thing to do, which is you go sit in on a gaming group, but you don't play. I can't think of anything more boring to do than watch other people uh, game at a table that I could be sitting at. And then obviously you participate. Yeah, that's when it all clicks together. The dice rolling, the storytelling, the silly voices, the maps, the minis, the rules, it all comes together, but only when you participate in it. So it's interesting that you say the appeal of joining a cult, Tink, because in this book it says to truly understand why cults are important, cults have to provide four things, and they're all reconciliations. They have to reconcile a person with themselves. They have to explain um, to the person who joins the cult who they are. Who are they? They help the person answer the question, "Who am I?" They reconcile us to ourselves. They reconcile us to society. They give us a place in our broader culture. They reconcile us with the cosmos. Why are we here? Now remember, when I say cults, I actually use the term cult not in the modern parlance, which is sort of this weird kind of fringe group, but like cult has just been another term for religion throughout history. So if you see a parallel between this and religion, if you see a parallel between this and gaming, see a parallel between this and any kind of communal group that you belong to, you see that we as humans, I had a professor who liked to say, we are not Homo sapiens. We are not like humans who think. We are Homo liturgus. We are humans who gather and we participate. Sean, what is the line that Creed gives in The Office? I've been part of a lot of cults, both a follower and a leader. Make more money as a leader, but you have more fun as a follower. Creed is quite possibly the most interesting character to me on The Office. He's always got something in the background. My other favorite one is where he shows up with blood on his shirt and splattered on his face, and they're like, "Oh, great costume," and he's like, "Oh, Halloween." Well, that was lucky. They never explain anything more. Anyway, we digress. And the last thing is it reconciles us with the greater mystery. What happens after we die? What is good? What is evil? These are all the four components of any cult in Glorantha. And honestly, you can look at these four things and look at religions of the world. You can look at, I mean, maybe they don't answer the question of the cosmos or the great mystery, but at least the first two, reconciling you with yourself and reconciling you with society. Football fans, I'm looking at you, cheeseheads. You are participating in a cultic experience. And then last but not least, that I think is key to this, are what they call the maps of mythology. So, as I said, it can be sometimes difficult for us to understand as GMs or players how myths relate to each other, especially in the God time. We have all of these different ages, we have all of these different major events, and some of the events are definitely in a linear-ish fashion, right? Creation of the elements, foundation of the spike, Yelm's ascent. Umoth and Orlanth. What happens with Ragnalar when chaos enters the world, the shattering of the spike. But there's all these other little myths. And so, as opposed to trying coming up with a chronology, which I think would have been a bad decision, because the point of the God time is that there is no linear time there. It's all happening, it's everything everywhere all at once, right? Is this the God time? The writers at Chaosium, and with their amazing art team, reframed the idea of time and how myths relate to each other. Instead, they provide maps for each of the main breakdowns of God time and say, hey, here's how things spatially relate to each other in this time. which is both beautiful and brilliant, in my opinion. The fact that I can look at a map and kind of see how these different places that have the myths going on relate to each other is far more useful to me than here's a chronological list, but don't hold on to that chronological list because time is kind of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, Jeremy bear me kind of stuff in the God time. It would be useless. But these mythological maps are, again, stunning. And Chaosium, if you're listening, I would like a map pack of the mythological maps and an actual centerfold poster that I don't have to rip out of my book to put on my wall. So yeah, so that's my review of Mythology. It is a must-buy for anybody who wants to play RuneQuest, run RuneQuest as a GM. I think it's a must-buy for anyone who loves Glorantha. It's just, right, because I think we've talked about, there is a group of people in the Glorantha community that they don't play the game, but they collect the game because they love reading about the world. John, that's why we're so friendly. Everyone wants to go Pat go. My wife is a Packers fan, and sadly I'm a Bears fan, which has made just football season miserable because the Bears just, we're getting close to our century, once a century win like the Cubs have. But also, if you are a student of mythology or want to see how myths relate to your gaming world, this PDF is possibly the best resource that you have for bringing your religions to life in your game, even if you're a D&D player. And I say that not pejoratively, but right, RuneQuest and D&D are sort of on opposite sides of the gaming spectrum. They use different dice, they have different focus. One is class-based, one is skill-based. One you play itinerant murder hobos, which is, again, not pejorative. I love playing itinerant wanderers who are going out to save the world. And the other one, you are deeply rooted in community. But if you want your Shar cult in the Forgotten Realms, or your Cult of the Silver Flame in Eberron, if you want your religions to feel real to your players and to your game world, or if you're homebrewing something, buy this book. This will walk you through why myths are important, why cults are important, and how to make them feel real and integrated into the fabric of your gaming world. No, my son is a Denver Broncos fan, though, Tink. So that's it for today. Thursday, I'm very excited. It's going to be I'm hoping to have a special guest on the stream. Bob Crumb. And the reason Bob is going to be on here is because we're going to be talking about my new game book, Urban Decay, a game of beat 'em up roleplay. Bob Crumb did all of the art for this game. It is a game that uses the clash system from Jackals, but is inspired by games or movies like The Warriors, John Wick, video games like Street Fighter or Streets of Rage, comics like the Marvel Knights series, Moon Knight, Detective Comics, that sort of thing. So, tune in Thursday where Bob and I will show off a PDF of Urban Decay and possibly even give one away. And so that's it. That's our first show for the new year. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will see you all on Thursday. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM. This has been Behind the Screen, and I will see you all later. Have a good one.